Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Your Grain Matters podcast. Today is part two of our series on an amazing environmental protection technology. You should check out the previous episode that was just aired this past Monday. Today, we're going to understand exactly how this remarkable product works, and make sure you stick around till the end of the segment. We've got an incredible demonstration you won't want to miss. We begin with Larry explaining how their product is transforming industrial cleanup practices.
When you talk to a producer who's been taking oil out of the ground the same way for maybe 100 years and putting sawdust around that hole to clean it up, and then you tell them that when you use a product like this, you will in fact absorb the material, not just adsorb it. And Len does a very, very good description of the difference between those two things, but really coming down to the fact that rather than just adhering to the outside of whatever particle you're using, that gets drawn inside, that process of it getting absorbed inside is the beginning of the process, because then we discover that the materials that we're using, two of the core ingredients of our product, which are both natural, naturally grown products grown all over the world, have microbial activity happening in them that consume the hydrocarbon from the inside out. So that particle takes in the hydrocarbon and then it eats it. So you can, in fact, we're working toward an environment where we can eliminate the transportation of the material, the cleanup material out at the end, leave it at an oil rig site where they've been drilling. And in fact, not only will it sit there with the hydrocarbon that's consumed, but we can put some fresh material there and blend that into the soil, and that will clean the soil that's there. It's unheard of.
Unbelievable.
Like absolutely unheard of, not done before. There's been all kinds of work done with polymers and all kinds of chemical compositions and all of those things, and they're great. They're expensive and they're not natural. And to Len's point, we wanted something that was sustainable and natural, and we love the idea of ubiquity. So there is not a situation, and we'll talk to a couple of those as we move on, a couple of situations where we weren't certain whether the product would work in that application. They're not oil and gas type businesses, and we in fact went in there with confidence that they would work, and we've done some really interesting things for customers that have left us feeling not just confident in the product, but invigorated and excited about it. And we both felt, I'll tell you honestly, Neil, when we first had this conversation, we both thought it really can't be this simple. Like there's got to be, something more to this. But it's one of those niches where, you want to be in a market where not everybody's chasing it, where your experience matters, and the ability to communicate a message and really show people some value means something. And that's what we found. And so we get to talk to people from small shop owners to major oil companies around the world, and food manufacturers and all kinds of companies. So it's really quite exciting.
A lot of fun.
So if I heard you correctly, you said natural and sustainable. So you're not talking about something that's injected with chemicals and stuff, I think. You're talking about just some natural elements from our earth?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I love this.
I won't go into detail into every single input material that goes into this absorbent, but what I will say is that it is a peat moss base. So really what that implies is that it is farmed sustainably, so it's not something that actually hurts the environment when it actually is pulled up from the ground. It then can be returned to the ground also in a very sustainable way as well. And most of the other materials that are also involved in many of the product lines, because it's not just, we don't have just one product line, we have a number of different products that we use depending on the avenue of usage. But for that type of product line, they're mostly almost always organic. And when I don't say organic, I'm not saying as in certified organic. I'm saying that the products do come from the earth. They are natural-based product lines.
Wow.
But the way it works in terms of its absorbability, it's more effective than really anything else that's on the marketplace. And it's not like one of these things where Larry and I have to, check it out. You'll see that what we're saying is absolutely the case. Whether it be watching one of our videos or actually getting a sample from us, you will see that the product line that we have developed here is likely superior to anything that you have used in the past.
So I was doing some research, as I often do for our podcast, And a couple of things came up, and maybe you did sort of touch on it. Maybe, Lenny, you could explain. So when people are using the clay-based product,
Yeah.
and I drilled down deeper, I found out that it contains something called crystalline silica quite often, which I understand could be a lung cancer causing agent.
Yes.
I'm assuming, first of all, that the products that you're talking about don't have health dangers other than people shouldn't eat them for breakfast.
That's an astute observation. Yeah. So I don't want to necessarily talk about the clay-based material in terms of its carcinogenic effect, aside from the fact to say it's actually on their label because of the effects that are there. But our products are very simple. There's nothing too crazy about them in the sense that I wouldn't suggest eating them. I wouldn't suggest, because it's a very fine particulate matter, I wouldn't suggest, sniffing it. But at the same token, there's nothing there that would affect anyone's health.
Excellent. So interesting. And also, I picked up, I think, Larry, you said, or Lenny, however you guys want to handle this, there's a difference between adsorb and absorb. So, like AD for Donald versus AB for Bob. So, what are we talking about?
I love the question because it makes me feel like I can be a nerd for a second. So thank you.
Glad to help.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So this is something that, again, as part of our deep dive of doing due diligence and research on this product line, we figured out and we found out. And really what the difference is when it is an adsorb, think of it, it actually adheres. So it's like a sticky substance that adheres to it. So a lot of these products that are out there are adsorbent in that they adhere to the material and they hopefully will get taken away and hold on to the material as they get taken away. But the problem with that, of course, is that's not really the way it works, because once the surface area of an adsorbent material is used up, then all that happens is you're just moving around the mess over and over again. An absorbent actually absorbs within the actual molecular structure of the product line that's there. So if you have something that does both of those things, which is really the sought-after effect of any absorbent or adsorb, then you have some secret sauce. And that's what we have here with our product line, is that it doesn't just absorb, it adsorbs, that it sticks to the material, as well as it draws it into the material itself. So that reduces the leaching. So one of the things you want to really avoid as it relates to hydrocarbon absorbent, so like an oil absorbent, is you don't want to absorb the material and then you move it to a different spot and then it just leaches and spreads everywhere thereafter. You want it to absorb the material, you want it to hold on to the material, and then you can move it elsewhere and it still holds on to that material. So our product line does that very, very effectively. It is probably the most sought after feature of our product, whether it be in the oil and gas sector or other sectors that it happens to touch.
And I noticed that Larry used the definition of that the product eats the hydrocarbon. So I think that's what you're saying. It actually absorbs it, and once it's in there, it's not getting out.
That's
correct. Is
correct.
that correct? Huh. Fascinating.
That's it for part 2 of our series. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to catch part 3 on Monday, where we'll show you how this technology is transforming industrial cleanup operations. And before we go, let me show you something amazing. Here's that demo I promised earlier of exactly what we've been talking about.
Okay, what we're going to demo now is we're going to pour 8 ounces of waste oil on each side of the tray, and then we're going to use 2 pounds of a clay product, and we're going to use 8 ounces of our Brownsorb. So there's the 8 ounces of waste oil. And here's 2 pounds of clay. As you can see with that, the first thing it does is pancake and make the spill a little larger. And then we're going to take this one and pour out our 8 ounces of material. And just like any other spill, just cover it, give it a chance to work in. And as you can clearly see, the 2 pounds wasn't close to being enough product to absorb that spill. And then we'll take the 8 ounces of the brown Zorb, and right away not only does it clean the surface, but it encapsulates and it will never let it go. So we have 2 options. We can now take the used product and finish the job that the 2 pounds of clay didn't do, or we can add 2 more pounds so you can see that 4 pounds of oil dry still won't be enough to clean up the spill. And sure, we may have used way too much product on the other side, but we got rid of the slip hazard, which can cost you or the company a lot more money with a lawsuit or a workers' comp claim. But look at this, 4 pounds of clay versus 8 ounces of brown Zorb, and we're still far from being close to cleaned up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the used product and see how much of it will help to clean up what the clay couldn't do. So right away the surface is getting much cleaner, much drier, getting rid of the hazard. We'll just put a little more down and it's dry.